Hello everybody, welcome to my second video. I just did my first video on A Course in Miracles, which I included a special message, which you can find in my first video on A Course in Miracles, entitled Special Message About A Course in Miracles. And it includes a channeled message there. But in this video, I'd like to talk about true forgiveness and what that means according to A Course in Miracles. True forgiveness, seeing the face of Christ in all your brothers. And that's our theme for today. True forgiveness in the Course is very different than the traditional view of forgiveness that we're taught in the world. And people have very good intentions when they're practicing forgiveness at this level where we believe we are here in a world of time and space, which is really an illusion. But as long as we appear to be here, we're going to do normal things in the world, be normal in the sense that you're going to have a normal job, you're going to have your relationships, right? You're gonna just walk the world doing basically what everybody does. The only difference is that in your mind, the mind level, if you're practicing A Course in Miracles, it would just say at the mind level, you know the truth, meaning that you really do understand that God is the only reality. And I'll take a step back for a minute and remind everyone who will be watching these videos that I'm talking about a spiritual thought system, A Course in Miracles, that is a purely non-dualistic thought system. So that just means that God is the only reality. And God is abstract. It doesn't have a form of any kind. God is perfect love. And then anything that can shift or change or take on a form of any kind, and that includes our bodies and the world of time and space, the entire system of the world of time and space, would be an illusion. And it's a projection coming from the ego part of the mind that thinks it's separated itself from God, which didn't really happen in reality, but we believe that it did. So now we need a way through to navigate through and out of the dream state. In other words, the Course, A Course in Miracles, is assisting us in awakening from the dream of separation that we appear to be living here now. And I think in another broadcast, I'll get more specific about how this all appeared to happen. Why do we appear to be here in a world of time and space? And I won't get into all those specifics here. And it's not necessarily required to understand what true forgiveness means. It'll be helpful, but I'll get into that a little bit later. For now, I'd like to just, in a nutshell, give you what true forgiveness means according to the Course, as opposed to the traditional view of forgiveness we've been taught. True forgiveness in the Course says you forgive other people for what they have not really done, not for what they have really done. And the reason why no one has done anything to you, or you can't really be attacked in any way, is because it's your projection. This is your dream. And there are many places in the Course where it talks about this, that there's one dreamer of the dream, and you're it. And if we all think this way, each of us seeming individuals think this way, that, oh, I'm the dreamer of my dream, which means that I can choose to perceive my dream any way I wish. Nobody's deciding that for me. In other words, the world of time and space and people are not the decision maker for you. The decision maker is your mind, and it's in your mind. And you can think of your mind as made up of three parts. You have the decision maker, the decision-making part of the mind, and then you have the Holy Spirit, what we call the right mind, and then you have the ego part of the mind, which we call the wrong mind. Now, most of us, until we start waking up, and the more we gain spiritual maturity and start to advance on our path, we start to learn certain things and certain concepts. And we start to understand that if the world is our projection and it's coming, right, from our minds, ultimately really only one mind that's projected itself out into 8 billion different bodies that appear to be here, we start to recognize that that's actually a false experience. There's only one dreamer of the dream. There's only one mind dreaming up all the 8 billion people and the world itself. When you understand that idea, then true forgiveness is justified, because you're not saying, oh, there is someone or something outside of me that can really hurt me or really has power over me. So you're saying, in a sense, that I have the power to choose. I have the power to decide which teacher I choose in my mind. The ego, which is, again, a thought system that's based on this idea of separation, that we're really separate from each other and from God. We're choosing between that thought system, which also is based in this idea that we are sinful beings, full of guilt and fear. And A Course in Miracles reminds us that there is no sin. There is no sin. Sin is just the idea of separation. Sin is really impossible. The Son of God, which is all of us as one, has never sinned, because we've never left our source. We've never left God. But we believe we did. And that's what the Course calls the tiny mad idea. The thought, which was illusory, that we really did separate from God. So we can either choose that teacher, the ego that represents that whole game of sin, guilt, and fear, separation, or we can choose the right part of our minds, that perspective, which again is the part of the mind where the Holy Spirit resides, which gives us a whole different picture of the world and of ourselves and of people. And it reminds us of the truth. It reminds us that we never left God. In fact, the Holy Spirit is the call to joy. It's the call to remembrance, to remembering who we really are as the Christ. And when I say that, and when the Course says that, Jesus means we're all the Christ as one Son of God. And 2,000 years ago, he wasn't saying he was the only Son of God. That was a misinterpretation. And he was teaching people this, and he was very good at forgiveness. And it was his demonstration, his fully loving presence that healed. You could be in his presence, and if you joined with him in his strength and shared in his ideas and had faith, then you would be healed. And again, it's not that his hands healed, although it looked like that. It was really his powerful presence of unconditional love and the demonstration when he walked the world that healed people. But they did need to have the faith. They really healed themselves because their mind was accepting his offering, and they really did have the faith. And he was acting as a reminder of one who remembered who he was and remembered God. And he was basically saying, if you join me, and share in my teachings, you're strengthening these ideas for the whole sonship, and the whole sonship then benefits because there's only one of us. The idea that there's 8 billion people out there somewhere in the world is a trick. It's a grand facade, the ultimate illusion. So this is why, coming back to forgiveness, we're forgiving people for what they haven't done, because the whole illusory thought system of the ego isn't true. And when people appear to be attacking you or being unkind or unloving to you, what's really happening is they're calling out for love. The Course says there's only 2 forms of expression, and this will help you with forgiveness if you remember this. There are only 2 forms of expression. People are either calling out for love or they're expressing love. That's it. There's no in between. So the world and people can call out for love in very vicious ways. We know that. We see that. We see it on our TV screens. We see it in wars. We see it in our own personal relationships, taking the form of abuse and all kinds of abuse. We see it in the workplace. We see it everywhere. But as your body's eyes look upon the world and look upon even those people that you would call those people in your special love relationships, meaning those people that you love to love as opposed to those people that you love to hate. It's called special love, and then there's special hate. But let's use an example of special love, which is really a mask, the Course says, over special hate. Let's say someone you appear to love does something that appears to be unkind. Maybe they say something unkind to you, or they appear to just sort of verbally attack you in some way. And let's say that you react to that. The Course would call, making that real. We make their attack real for ourselves. What that means is we must have decided first in our own mind that we can be attacked, that we can really be hurt. And if we didn't have that belief, then we wouldn't attack back. We wouldn't meet attack with attack. Instead, we would see that person's attack as a call for help. It's like that person is saying, I've lost God, help me. I feel lost. Or I hate myself. I need help. Calling out for love, calling out for love. And if we meet attack with that, with love, then it's an amazing and incredible demonstration to the other person and to the whole sonship, really, because all minds are joined, that what you really are not only cannot be attacked, in other words, you can retain your peace if you choose to, but you're making a statement that the whole separation from God has not even occurred. Because you, in that moment of this seeming attack from another person, you're not accepting that offering from that other person. That's really not even there. The Course says we're making up all the images we see. And again, if we're making up the images we see, and that includes our own bodies, that really does mean there's really no one out there to really attack us. Now, coming back again with that understanding, true forgiveness becomes, then it makes a little bit more sense. Because it's saying, what I'm really forgiving, if no one's out there and really attacking me, what I'm really forgiving then is my belief in the separation from God. I'm choosing my right mind, which represents the Holy Spirit, which is reminding me of the truth that I have never left God. I've never left heaven. And being the Christ, which all of us as one are the Christ again, Christ can't be attacked. Because Christ can't separate itself from its source. It's impossible, but we can believe we can. Just like the Course says, there is no death. There's a belief in death, but there's really no death. There's only life. And the only life there is in heaven, is in God. So all the stories we make up about ourselves, and even these personalities, in other words, I, Cindy, I'm not really this persona named Cindy. I'm playing a role that I am, just like an actor in a play. I mean, like an actor in a play, like we are all actors. And again, we're the stars of our own movie. But the star of the movie, the hero of the dream, this body, is not our reality. So forgiveness, when we're actually practicing true forgiveness, when someone appears to attack, we're basically in our minds thinking differently. We're remembering the truth, and we're going, if I feel like someone has wronged me in some way, and I'm reacting to it as if they've wronged me, then that means that I believe in attack and that I can attack, because that means I made the first attack in my mind. I attacked myself, because there's only one. There's a law of the mind in the Course. The law of the mind says, as you see him, you see yourself. As you think of him, you think of yourself. So no matter what we're thinking about other people, if we're thinking vicious thoughts about other people, guess what? Well, we're thinking those vicious thoughts about ourselves. It comes right back to ourselves. Just as if we're thinking loving thoughts and thoughts God would have us think, which the Course calls our pure thoughts, remembering our reality as that we're all one and all one being. If we're thinking that about another person, that they're the Christ, guess what? That means I'm remembering that I am the Christ, that I am whole, that I'm innocent. And this is the part where you see the face of Christ in all your brothers, which is part of having a forgiving attitude. To see the face of Christ in all your brothers is a way of thinking. It's not that your body's eyes are not going to see other bodies. Of course, you're going to see other bodies, and you're going to see other bodies that might be hurting or suffering. And doesn't mean that we're not empathic to that and showing empathy, but it means that we look past the form, and no matter what an attack or an unkindness, whatever form that might take, to see the face of Christ in all our brothers is to remember that those people aren't their bodies. People aren't their bodies. They're perfect spirit, whole and innocent, just like you. And you're saying that's what you are. So this is what Jesus was teaching, 2,000 years ago. He would see the face of Christ in all his brothers because he remembered who he was. So he could look about and not be fooled by the behavior of others, because he could just see right past it. And again, when the Course uses the word see, it really means think. Because when the body's eyes see, and we just think it only in terms of, we make real what our body's eyes see, we're going to misinterpret everything. So what we want to do is shift to true vision, Christ vision, which is thinking with the Holy Spirit, which is, again, you remember the truth. We're all innocent and we have never left God. That's actually what accepting the atonement means in the Course. Atonement in the Course is very different from atonement in the Bible. We're not atoning for sins that we've committed. Atonement in the Course is accepting that the separation from God has not occurred. You're accepting the atonement for yourself, that nothing's really happened because you've never left God. This is all part of having a forgiving attitude. So when someone appears to treat you unfairly, if you come back to some of these basic ideas and remember, wait, this is my dream. And I made up all the figures in my dream. Just like I do in bed at night when I'm dreaming. I make up all the figures in bed at night. Think about it. When we're in bed at night and we're dreaming a dream, in our nighttime dreams, our eyes are closed. What are we seeing those images with? Our eyes are closed. We're seeing those images with our mind, just like we hear with our minds. We are thinking with our minds, not with the brain. The brain doesn't do anything. It's acting as a filter, in the world of form, but it's the mind that sees, the mind that thinks, the mind that hears, the mind that feels. Even in our dreams in bed at night, we can feel things. You might feel all kinds of things, and you might start breathing heavily because you're having a nightmare, and your body is responding to that. But it's really all taking place in the mind, and you're feeling that in the mind. And then when you wake up from the dream in bed at night, you realize you never left the bed. You're still in bed, safe. So this entire dream we're dreaming is like that. When we wake up from the entire dream of time and space, we're going to wake up back into God, and we're going to realize, well, we never left God, just like we never leave the bed at night at this level of form. We've never left God. It was all a dream. Not only that, just like when you wake up in the morning and sometimes you forget the dream, you knew that you had a dream, but you forget it. And you forget all the details of the dream. And sometimes you don't remember you dreamt it all. Well, we won't remember this dream either. And that's not a bad thing. It's nothing to judge as bad. In fact, there would be nothing to miss. There's nothing to miss in heaven, because we've never left. Not one note in heaven's song was missed, the Course says, when we appeared to have that tiny mad idea of separation. Not one note in heaven's song was missed, meaning love, perfect love, continues in continuity. There's no break or limit. It just continues forever into eternity. So true forgiveness recognizes what you thought another has done to you has not really occurred. And the Course describes true forgiveness also as, it says, the steps are identify the cause of your upset. If someone does something or says something to you and you react and you're upset about it, it says identify the cause of the upset. Where's that upset really coming from? According to the Course, it's a choice. The upset is a choice that was made in the mind by the ego part of your mind. So in that moment, the ego is your teacher. And it's saying, I'm upset because of something this person said or did to me. The Course is saying that we're really upset because we chose the ego as our teacher and we feel separate from God. So we want to identify the real cause of our upset is that we allowed something outside of us, which is just a picture, just an image, to have power over us, to be the ruler of our universe. And that's upsetting. So the ego is really the teacher of upset. It's a teacher of pain. So once we identify the cause and say, well, wait, it's not really this person that has done anything to me, we identify the cause, then we let it go. We identify the cause, then let it go so it can be replaced. And what we're letting go of is our own interpretation of the problem as we see it. we're going to make up all kinds of reasons why we're upset. But this really disempowers us because it places the cause outside of us in a world of time and space that isn't really there because it's a projection coming from our minds. In fact, I wanted to read you this part in the course, and it's a very powerful workbook lesson, lesson 23, that actually says, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. And this is the lesson where Jesus describes forgiveness without saying flat out, this is what forgiveness means. But this lesson is all about how we can forgive and see the world that we made differently. Our perspective can change. We can shift our perception, which is what the miracle means in A Course in Miracles. The miracle is a shift in perception. Again, shifting from the thought system of the ego to the thought system of the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to read just a few short paragraphs here that describes what I've been saying here. It says, the idea for today, which is, again, I can escape the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The idea for today contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless. But this way cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts, then, that we must work, if your perception of the world is to be changed. So Jesus, again, is bringing us back to the mind, where our thoughts are where we can change our minds about the world. And he says in the Course that the goal is not to try to fix or change the world, but we can change our minds about the world. And that helps us retain then our power. And we're not giving our power away to a world outside of ourselves. In fact, that's where we even placed God. We placed God outside of ourselves. We forget that God is within. He even says in the Course, not only is heaven within us, we are the kingdom of heaven. It's not only within us, we literally are the kingdom of heaven. Then he says, if the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There is no point in lamenting the world. There is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effect will change automatically. You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. And this is because the cause is made up, right? The cause is made up in our minds. We think that we've really sinned by separating ourselves from God. And unconsciously, we feel guilt over that. And it's this guilt that drives the world. And it's this guilt that's the cause of all the problems. And it's this guilt that produces fear, too, as well. They all go together, sin, guilt, and fear. It's like a vicious cycle that will keep playing out. You see it in wars, that have been playing out over centuries. Yet the Course says, in this war, there's no opponent. In other words, when we war with others, whether it's with other nations or with other people, we're really warring with ourselves. But this war is really between ourselves believing in this ego thought system, this ego part of ourselves, a false sense of self, warring with God. Because we've projected onto God a punishing intent. This is where this whole idea that God is to be feared comes in. God is not a punishing God because God is only perfect love. So we've projected onto God this fearful aspect that now God is going to come and punish us for our, quote, sin, right, that we have committed by separating from him. And Jesus is helping us in the Course really think differently about this whole idea of sin. That, look, sin is a mistake. It's just an error. In other words, it's untrue. And we can learn to forgive that idea. So remember, there is no sin, but there's a belief in it. You can have a belief in it. There is no guilt, but you can have a belief in guilt. There is no death, but you can have a belief that there's death. So he says here, you see, I'll read this part again. You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images and so transform them that you will love them, even though they were made of hate. For you will not be making them alone. The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified, then let go so that it can be replaced. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. That's because the world of time and space is already done and over. The world was over long ago. The world was over long ago. We're merely mentally reviewing that which has already gone by. So by taking the first two steps, identifying the cause, right, of your upset, and then letting it go, by taking those first two steps, you will see that your upsets and everything that we've made real here and all the suffering and the pain has been replaced. All our images have been transformed already because in reality, right, the Holy Spirit represents the correction for our mistaken choice in the ego. And that correction of our mistake to be separate, to choose the separation, was corrected in the same seeming instant that we chose the ego. The correction was done and made. This is how the Course describes what appeared to happen when we kind of bought into that tiny mad idea that we could separate from God. So seeing the face of Christ then in all our brothers helps us to remember who we are when we see it in other people. And not only does it help us undo the ego, but it helps the whole sonship. The whole sonship benefits and heals each time we perform a miracle, which is that shift in perception again. Each time we perform a miracle in our minds by thinking about people as they really are, all of it, nothing less than God, whole and innocent, we're assisting the whole sonship in awakening from the dream of separation. And before I close, I do want to say this. This doesn't mean at this level where we believe we are in the world, because I'm sure there would be questions about this. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be normal here. We don't have to deny our experience here in the world. And A Course in Miracles is really meant to be done and practiced at the level of the mind. It's not about behavior. Because when we take care of the mind part and practice true forgiveness, then the rest of it, the effect, takes care of itself. So we can walk the world right? Normally, like kind of like other, we're like just like any average person would walk the world. You go to your normal job, whatever it is you're trained to do, you do your job, whatever it is that, ignites your fire, and inspires you. You can have your relationships. You don't have to give anything up. It's not about that. It's just about changing your mind so you can be free from the effects of choosing the ego, which is painful. You can be free of that by remembering you're a decision-making mind, not really a body. And your mind is what decides for you how you feel, not the world. And you can come to that place where you get very good at that just by practicing. So there's a line in the Course where Jesus says it's an unworthy form of denial to actually deny your existence here in this world, because we've made it real. And because we've made it real, it would, again, be an unworthy form of denial. That's not, so he says, what real denial means in the Course is we deny the ability of anything not of God to affect our peace. That's the true definition of denial. We deny the ability, right, of anything not of God to affect our peace. In other words, we can retain our peace and be peaceful regardless of what other people are doing, of what the world is doing. And when we remember this and when we practice this, we keep chipping away at more and more unconscious guilt in the mind. And again, where does that guilt come from? Well, again, it's the idea that we have sinned, that we have separated ourselves from God. And that simply is not true. And so with that, I think I'll leave it at that. And I will be talking a little more about what the Course calls forgiveness to destroy, which is an attempt at true forgiveness, but it can mask itself as forgiveness, but it's still not going all the way to true forgiveness. That will be another talk. So this way we can kind of compare the two. What is true forgiveness, which I've described today, as opposed to this forgiveness to destroy, which again is a very genuine attempt by most people to forgive, which is a step in the right direction. But to really go all the way with it, again, this is not always an easy path. As this path of A Course in Miracles asks us to look at our egos. And sometimes when we're asked to look at the ego, which is based, right, on sin, guilt, and fear, it might feel as if, again, things even get tougher for a time or more difficult. Maybe it seems like you have more problems because maybe for the first time you're being asked to really look at your ego. And the reason why Jesus asks us to look at our egos is because we've made them real. We've made that our identity. So, but he says, look with me as your teacher. Be above the battleground. That's what it means to look with Jesus at our ego, is to be above the battleground. And he's looking with us, but we can look from a neutral place where there's no judgment. We forget to judge. We let go of all judgment. There's good or bad, right? All opposites, a world of duality. We rise above the battleground and just look. Forgiveness looks, waits, and judges not. And what that means is we look at the ego thought system and what it's doing, and waits for the mind to change. We wait for our minds to change and choose the Holy Spirit. Looks, waits, and then we let go. We don't judge anything. We just let the Holy Spirit take it from there. That's the third step that the Holy Spirit's in charge of. We don't have to worry about the effects of our forgiveness or about the outcome of our forgiveness. That's the Holy Spirit's job. It will take your forgiveness and shine it across the sonship and hold it in the mind till it's ready to be accepted by the sonship. And we can't see this part, so it's hard to trust it and have faith in it. But I assure you, if you step back and let him lead the way, you'll start to understand and trust, learn to develop that trust in what you can't see. You can't see the Holy Spirit, but you can see it in action. You can't see love, but you can see love in action. So with this, I leave you with these words. The guiltless mind cannot suffer. The guiltless mind cannot suffer. And you are as God created you. You remain that way. And his son can suffer nothing, and you are his son. So I look forward to the next video that I do. And again, it might be on forgiveness to destroy. I probably will follow with that and then go into a couple other things to continue with this theme for a little while. And I look forward to it, seeing you again. So thanks everyone. God bless.